Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our Only Murders in the Building Season 4, Episode 4 reaction and review for The Stunt Man. Let's all just be shocked for a moment. What was that? What was that ending? Like what listen, we will have the beef hat on at times for this episode,
Oh,
but that ending. Wow.
yeah, that ending, there's a lot to talk about there with that ending with Bev
Yeah.
Melon and her being in the shack that is at Sazz's trampoline park that will end up coming, I hope still. I mean, we saw the sign that was like coming soon kind of thing, and it would be a really nice way to continue her legacy. And I really do hope that we see that. It was really also nice in this episode to see that there was a funeral for her and that Charles tapped in for it. I mean, obviously it was funny as well, but
Yeah.
like as a former funeral director, for me, I feel that funerals are really important for a lot of people. Not
Yeah.
everybody, everybody deals with death in different ways, but for a lot of people, this is a way to be able to not only just honor that person, but to be able to say goodbye and to be able to move forward. And it was really nice that he stepped in for her.
We had a really emotional moment saying goodbye to Sazz in that way. We had a very shocking moment at the end of this episode. We have a
Yeah.
few clues that are sprinkled in. Do we know the full truth about what's going on in the Westies and Dudenoff? And then we also have about 15 minutes of Paul Rudd in an episode that we probably should have had about 3 minutes of Paul Rudd. And it just went on and on and on.
Listen, before you're talking about Paul Rudd, you need to put the beef hat
Oh,
on
sorry.
because we all know that this is what the beef is.
Okay, yeah, I think this is one of those instances. Okay, I'll say this first and foremost here. I love Paul Rudd.
Who doesn't?
I've watched almost everything on Paul Rudd. I watched him even on Hot Ones. I debated watching Ant-Man, and I am like 8 movies behind on the MCU just because I love Paul Rudd. But here's the thing, Only Murders. This is the first time, really, in the entire show that I have felt like the cameo went too far and it was just about the celebrity versus the story. They've always kind of teetered on that line. Like, this is the first episode I feel like they really jumped over that line.
This season is so packed with guest stars that
Yeah.
this show has become a lot about the guest stars. We've seen it in the comments, even in this last episode, that some of you are feeling the same way as us, where it's
Yeah.
like season one, they had Sting.
Yeah.
And they did have Tina Fey, obviously, but she was playing a character on there. And it wasn't like Eugene Levy is in as himself and Eva as herself and
Yeah.
Zach is himself. And like, it's kind of like that, right? But season one had very specific cameos, we'll call them, or guest stars. And now it's so packed with guest stars
Yeah.
that is it taking away from the show a little bit? I've seen some of you guys saying that it is. Let us know in the comments. But before we get too deep into everything,
Yes.
be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are here 3 times a week talking about Only Murders in the Building. We have our reviews up every Tuesday morning at 9. We have a preview later that day. And on Wednesdays, we have our theory videos. And this week, we are going to be getting into the Westie besties and what is really going on with them and whether or not Dudenoff is dead, and they are covering it up to be able to keep their apartment. That is my theory, and we are going to be talking about that in our Wednesday video. We are also covering Slow Horses here.
Yeah.
The Old Man just started up. If you want other sort of like thriller mysteries, those 2 shows are really great, and they're off to a great start.
If you guys do want to support us even more, be sure to join our Patreon. We have a link in the description below, and for $5 a month, you can help to let us continue to make these great videos for you guys, and also vote in polls about shows we're covering. And we're also covering exclusively on Patreon right now The Penguin. Just so, speaking of comic book extended universes here, if you love yourself some Batman and some very interesting crime thriller stuff as well,
Yeah.
that is a very good choice for you.
let's just get into the Bev Melon of it all. Because
Okay.
this was such a cliffhanger, and everybody get your tinfoil hats on.
All right. I'm good. I'm ready.
This is where I think we are with Bev. Is Bev the killer? No, I don't think she is. And part of it is because of how we found her in this shed and how she reacted. And why would she know about this trampoline park that's coming for Sazz? Or why would she be there at all? I think that in their past, or even not so distant past, we know that Sazz was going to be breaking up with Jan. And I think that Bev and Sazz were lovers, or they were starting a relationship, or they had a friendship. There was something there that was deeper between the two of them. I mean, they both work in the industry, right? So they would probably know each other. The stunt person industry as well is a pretty small one. So you are likely going to be seeing some of the same faces coming on to different sets and stuff like that. So would Sazz pass Bev's path? Probably, especially since she's doing a movie about Charles, right? So she's going to cross paths with Sazz somewhere along the line. I think they had a really personal relationship. And I think that Bev was there looking into what happened to Sazz because she's broken up over what happened to Sazz.
I think this is a really good theory, and I think there's
Oh,
See,
thank you.
we are on the same page with this. Thank you very much. Look at that. Look at that. If we have this, if we can be on the same page, let's all be on. No, I'm kidding. No, we will always love hearing you guys' theories.
Yeah,
All
there
theories.
are no wrong theories here.
I know. Okay, so no, the reason why I think what you say makes total sense here is just because there's not a lot of people who would seemingly know about, Sazz or the movie or a lot of this stuff in advance. And so it's just the situation here where where did Bev come up with the idea for the Only Murders in the Building movie? And this is just it's a tricky thing because I'm not going to pretend like I'm a Hollywood development expert here or whatever, but if we kind of follow the timeline, it seems like this movie had been in development for a little while at the time in which the trio went out to Los Angeles. And that means, hypothetically, this could have been in development before everything even happened with Ben Glenroy. And so if you think about that, it's like, okay, this podcast wasn't as big back then because there wasn't a big name star that was being investigated in some way. So there had to be kind of a common thread that sort of got this on Bev's doorstep. And because she's the money person, like she's going to be one of the people who kind of finds out about the project first. And this is where I connected to what you're saying about, okay, Sazz and Bev have to have some sort of really deep history here, whether it's romantic, whether it's just really, really personal, whether they've known each other for a very, very long time. I think Sazz must have been the person who brought this idea to Bev in the first place, because it's just sort of like, okay, well, who else could it be? And we know, from real life even, that these studio bigwigs, they all kind of get like these true story ideas from somebody before everybody kind of hears about them collectively, because that's where a lot of these based on a true story movies come from, where you see them in theaters and you're like, how did I not know about this story before? It's because people like Sazz go and tell somebody else about it. And it just feels like there's not a lot of people that Sazz would have told that story to about the trampoline park and about her dreams. So there had to be a really deep relationship there. I think there was a deep relationship there that this is how Bev finds out about the movie. But then I'm going to go even crazier here. I think one other deal about movie bigwigs, they love to talk. They love the sound of their own voice very, very much. So I kind of think Bev started talking and talking and talking about this movie. And I think this is where our big bad, our real murderer, not necessarily the person who was hired, but the real murderer must have found out about this and tried to get rid of Charles before he even found out about the life rights and all of that. So everything, all the dots are connected.
Yeah, the biggest clue to Bev and Sazz having some sort of deeper relationship that's not just professional is that Bev is at this trampoline park.
Yeah.
Because we saw this scene from the past where Sazz was telling Charles about it and was like, listen, this is going to be my long-term plan. I want to be able to help train stunt people in the future like my family did for me. I want to be able to help other people see their dreams realized, and I'm going to put together this trampoline park, but don't tell anybody. This is something that's personal to me, and I'm not telling anybody. So if Bev is there, that means that Sazz has told her, and that means that they have to have a pretty deep relationship, because Charles and Sazz have a deep relationship. Now, we know that there's this whole thing with the stuntman bar and Dr. Maggie and everything that she said. Is the person that Sazz was sort of transitioning away from because she was in a difficult relationship with them, Charles? I don't think it is, if I'm being honest. She still spent so much time with Charles. She wasn't backing away from Charles. She was diving into a possibility of something happening to Charles. She was warning Charles. She loved Charles. I do not think that Charles is the difficult relationship she was getting away from and why she was getting out of this business. Who is it? Leave it in the comments for us. Matt, who is it?
Okay, I didn't think this before you started talking there, but now I'm kind of like, is it Bev Melon? Because
Could be Bev. Could be Jan.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that it's Jan, just because, Jan's killing people. But
and she said she was breaking up with her.
Yeah, like it could very well be Jan, or it could be Bev if it's the position that Bev is either very possessive, Bev could be very jealous, Bev could be somebody who just does not let things go. She might have had something bad might have happened with her and Sazz, but even though that happened after Sazz died, then Bev is still going to be like, well, I want justice. Here's the biggest clue that, Bev obviously has some big connection to everything that I'm totally kicking myself over. This is Molly Shannon. Molly Shannon is not going to be like, oh, I'm going to go and join Only Murders in the Building to just play like this stereotypical studio boss character who has no depth whatsoever. This is Mary Catherine Gallagher, people. Like she had her have to have a good story to agree to even come on this. And I didn't see it. And I was so surprised by the end of this.
Okay, I'm back on Scott Bakula Island here.
I am so curious how you're bringing Scott Bakula up right now.
Okay, so the thing that Dr. Maggie had said was that Sazz was retiring because of something having to do with a difficult relationship she was in. And she's leaving her job of being a stunt woman to get into something else, to be able to train the next generation of stunt people. The job that she's working on currently, that she was before she got killed, was with Scott. She was his stunt double, and now she's gone, and she was trying to leave the business because of someone she was having a difficult relationship with in the business. So Scott, you guys are all gonna unsubscribe. I know. Listen, I know I'm stuck on Scott, but there's just something off about it.
No, you're not. You need to get the chef hat on because you were cooking here. I didn't even think of Scott when you brought up, oh, there is some sort of like a bad relationship.
They were working together. That was her most current job, and all of a sudden she's telling the doctor, like, "Listen, I'm having a really difficult relationship, so I'm leaving my job." That has to be about work. So Bev makes sense.
Yeah.
Jan, maybe if Jan is like, stop doing your job or else, like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't think so. But Scott also makes sense because that's who she's currently being a stunt person for. Okay, I'm off the island now. We're back in it.
Stay on it makes a lot of sense. Like I've said that I think the big bad here is, some underling who works on the movie, but Scott, I've still said, I think I said this in the premiere, that your Scott theory is the most fun by far. Like, it would just be so fun if Scott...
It's probably not Scott.
I know, but it would be fun.
I just love Scott.
It would be so interesting. Now, I think the one other thing is, it makes sense that Charles would think that he is the person, because Charles is very, I don't want to say insecure, but I think Charles is second guessing a lot of things. And I think Charles has a lot of regret. Now, the one thing I've kind of struggled with a little bit since we saw this, like, jaw-dropping into this episode is like, okay, well, why is Bev, pointing a weapon at these people? Why is she being like that reactive to this situation. But the more that I've kind of sat on it, the more I'm sort of like, well, maybe she's sort of like Charles in a way as well, and that she's very paranoid and she knows that someone took out Sazz. So
Yes.
she might very well think that somebody is about to take her out as
Yes.
well. So
Absolutely.
I think that's where I think it's just sort of the situation where could Bev Melon be some sort of like, overarching villain in the story? Sure, but it's only 4 episodes in. I don't think they're going to reveal something that specific or that huge in episode 4. I think this is sort of a red herring, and I think Bev could actually be useful to the trio, provided that she puts the weapon down and they go and have a conversation.
So speaking of insecure people, let's talk about Oliver quickly in this love story that's
Mhm.
going on where he's getting really in his feelings about a picture of an arm around
Yeah.
Loretta, and I mean this is where I am with it. Oliver, you're blowing it. You blew it when you were out in LA. Loretta poured her heart out and was like, I love you. Do you want to move with me? Be with me? Let's start our life together. And he was like, I got to go home. I'll think about it. And so to me, it was kind of a surprise when he said, I was thinking of proposing to her. And she just laid it out for him to be like, I'm open to this. I love you. Also, move here with me. Let's be together. He could have easily been like, okay. But his insecurities are just eating away at him that he's like, I've had just failed relationships and
Yeah.
failed marriages, and I just feel like I can't move forward. And instead, he's catfishing her.
Do we need to get
Neve in
Oliver?
here.
Yeah, if we get Oliver, get Loretta over on MTV? Now this,
Come on, Neve and Cammy, come do
oh,
it. Do your thing. I love Catfish so much. For
you do
anyone
love
who's
Catfish. Now,
been with the channel a while, you know my love for Catfish.
you know what this whole, okay, I'll say this first. Anytime we have this sort of situation on TV where somebody is like, I love you, and the other person is like, blah, blah, it reminds me of that 70s show where I think Donna told Eric, I love you, and he responded with, I love cake, question mark.
Yeah, or like, yeah, I love you, and someone's like, thanks.
Oh, that's the worst. That is so searing. Now, the thing here with Oliver is, yeah, I am, of course, very frustrated at Oliver because it's just sort of like, you're a grown man, Oliver. You have been around the block. You have a number of failed show business productions. Like, you know what happens when you fail at things. Like, you should be able to channel your life experience. But I get it, he is not this big, super hunky guy, this woman he loves is on the other part of the country. He's not spending time with her. There's just more functional, healthy ways to deal with this. And by the way, the big hunky arm that's in these pictures is probably just her co-star. It's probably not that serious. It's probably just around, she's around, I don't know what to call him, Arms Johnson all day. And Arms Johnson likes her and wants to take pictures because they're trying to promote a show. Like, this is not that deep, Oliver.
If she was with this person, they'd just be in the picture. Like,
Yeah.
she cut that person out because she was clearly like, I like this picture of me. I don't need to put this person in because it's not that serious. It just doesn't matter. So I'll just cut myself out and put myself online. It happens all the time.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about Howard and Hammy Faye, which was very,
Oh.
very cute. And they're definitely playing up this insecurity and loneliness
Yeah.
about Howard so much this season.
Yes.
They've played it up a little bit throughout the seasons. But all of you out there that think that Howard is this huge mastermind, this season is for you. Truly, it is for you.
Yeah.
They are really diving into this thing where he's really reaching out to the trio. We saw that big speech with him about Oliver, which I took to be how much he really loves the building, and he does love the people in the building, and that the building and the people there are his family, sort of thing. And that's where I am with it. But I know a lot of people out there are like, no, it's his villain speech and he's having a hard time with the trio. And we saw that here too. He's really on his podcast about animal jobs. And Mabel really did try to not let him down, but like, listen, like I have to take care of this one thing,
Mhm.
but I'm going to come back and we will talk about it at another time. But it feels like they are escalating his frustration with it all this season.
They are, and I think it is intentional that they want us to be suspecting Howard and asking all these questions about Howard. Like, I don't think Howard is a bad dude. I know it's a fun thing to talk about. I've even seen, a number of interviews where Michael Cyril Creighton, who plays Howard, has basically said that, he's intentionally a little bit suspicious, but he's also intentionally endearing. He's
He is.
all of these different things. Like, he clearly cares enough about the trio that he's willing to sit around with Hammy Faye, and he tries to follow what Mabel wants him to do. But the problem is that Howard has a fundamental weakness here, which is the allure of Hollywood, the allure of being a star. We saw him sing last season. Here, the notice slips under the door at the Dudenoff place, and that is enough to make him want to go and do this. Now, is there anything nefarious about this Dudenoff place having that little sheet of paper go underneath it? Like, what do you think?
Listen, I'm putting on my beef hat.
Oh, okay.
Okay. As a a former filmmaker, I was a filmmaker for many years
Yep.
up in Canada. The thing that I'm having the hardest time, I'm trying to have my suspension of disbelief for this.
Yeah.
From episode 1, where they were like, we are 3 weeks from filming, we are Paramount Studios, and only now we are getting your life rights. I was just like, there is no way that
Yeah.
this is happening. They are not going to dump millions of dollars into a project and not have the right to be able to do it. This would never happen.
Yeah.
So the idea that there was this notice, I was like, okay, maybe it's just somebody trying to get him out of the apartment. No. Bev Melon and the brother sisters and a guy doing like a screen test with a camera are set up in what looks like Sting's apartment. And they're actually doing auditions. So I was just like, oh, okay. Is one of these 4 people in this apartment doing this screen test in on it, that they're trying to pull him out? And I was like, it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like this production is put together with a Band-Aid and a prayer. Like, they do not know what they're doing. And it is like last minute casting like this. They got to be like 2 weeks away from filming or a week away from filming at this point. How are they still casting people unless it is extra work, which absolutely comes up at the last minute a couple days before? Then this is not a thing that's going to be happening.
Well, yeah, and even if it's just extra work, you're not going in front of the director and in front of the money person. You just show up to the location, they give you a costume, and you're just sort of told to go and sit in this corner and read something or do what. It's a really
100%. It is never like that. I did extra work for a really long time as well, and I've never met a director that sat there and had a screen test so that I can eat a sandwich in the background. Just stop.
No, I think this is just the show playing around with Hollywood productions, and they're counting on the fact that a lot of people watching the show don't really know how a lot of this process works, and it was just they needed a reason to get Howard out of the Dudenoff apartment.
Okay, we are going to get into that, but like we said, we are going to have a video up on Wednesday that's actually going to do a much deeper dive into this, because we have a lot of theories about what's going on and what's happening with the Westie Besties.
Yes.
So we see Mabel go back to the apartment. Who's in there? The Westie Besties. And they have moved the bed that's in there. They know about the secret compartment in the wall. For some reason, they seem to have all of Dudenoff's paperwork. And I've said this in other videos, and I'm still standing on this. Dudenoff is not with us anymore. Dudenoff is dead. And whether or not they've killed Dudenoff or Dudenoff was dead and they found him, something is going on for them to have all of Dudenoff's paperwork. Their whole thing is like, listen, Dudnoff, he's just this wonderful professor that on a professor's salary was able to snatch up all these rent controlled apartments, and now he's living like a king, and he gave us these rent controlled apartments for $200 a month, and we send him our $200 a month, and he sends us a ham every month from Portugal that is worth way more than $200. Look at that ham.
Yeah.
That is not cheap to have or to send to all of them. Like, stop it. So is this real? Like, I think it's a half truth. I think that they have gotten these apartments through Dudnoff, but something happened in there somewhere.
Mhm.
And like I said, we'll get more into it in the theory video, but something happened in there somewhere where they are continuing to have these apartments and Dudnoff is not around anymore. And I think that he's dead.
Without getting too deep into it right now, I'll just say what I said in the last review, which is I think Dudenoff is an organization. I think they're intentionally doing some shady things around these Westie besties. I think these Westie besties are doing their best to look the other way. I would just say for now, we should all be keeping an eye on Helga because I think Helga is pretty important. And a lot of this at this point, I don't exactly buy what Rudy is saying about, oh, she's just crazy, because she was really specific in that message on the ham radio. And yeah, she could be crazy in saying all of that. It just feels like he's just trying to blah, 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 blah the situation because he doesn't want to think about it, or he's just trying to distract from some other sort of secret.
If I don't think that they're just making Helga be another crazy woman, because if they are, I'm going to start getting really mad at this show because every single season it feels like they have some woman who's crazy.
Mhm.
It's Jan, it's Joy, it's Helga. All the women are
Yeah.
crazy. Like, I'm really kind of getting over that narrative on the show. But I don't think that that's what's happening here. I just don't.
I think that this is
I
gonna.
believe in you guys.
I want to believe in you guys too, and I think there
Rudy's hiding something.
Rudy is for sure hiding something, and I think in between Helga, Dudenoff, this place, I still have a lot of questions about the stinking pig, and a lot of like who's caring for this pig a lot of the time, going in and out. Yeah, Howard apparently now has custody of the pig because he didn't trust Mabel with it.
Yeah, I mean, we heard a pig on the radio, so
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Helga's the person with the pig. So we'll see how it is.
Okay, all right, it's time to talk Paul Rudd. We've went far enough in here. Okay, here's
You still have your beef hat on?
I've kept it on in preparation
All
for this
right,
moment
all right.
because here's the real thing with Paul Rudd and with guest stars in general. I'm fine with guest stars and having big names on the show if they are forwarding along the story.
Like Sting.
Yeah, in a big compelling way. Like Sting was fun because it was unexpected. He was sort of a red herring, but he
Yeah.
was involved in some way in the investigation, and never really felt like you had Sting just to have Sting on the show. Paul Rudd, like as Ben Glenroy, sure.
Yeah.
Even as this stunt character, for a couple of minutes, if he's just there to sort of be like a wink and a nudge to last season and a kind of a connective tissue to get Charles into the stuntman bar and eventually the chiropractor,
Mhm.
I'm fine with that. It just went on for so long. We're never going to see this character again, in my opinion. He has no connection to anything going on with Sazz's murder. It just felt like we need to fill time. Oh, look, here's Paul Rudd. We love Paul Rudd, and I get it. Who doesn't love Paul Rudd?
Yeah.
Paul Rudd's going to do an Irish accent for some reason. I don't know if this is Paul Rudd being like, I want to do an accent. I'm not sure about that. It just felt like it was too much about the celebrity and not enough about the story. And it took too long in this episode for us to actually get to some of the reveals that we really like talking about here.
Yeah, I could have done with it for a shorter period
Yeah.
of time. Like that. Yeah, okay, he's in the bar, helps him get into the doctor's office. He
Yeah.
doesn't need to be in the doctor's office. I didn't need this whole thing with him like barrel rolling over a car into the garbage. Like
Yeah.
it was fine. It is getting very overwhelming, the amount of celebrities that are on this season. Like there are some that they make
Yeah.
sense, But this particular one, it didn't need to be as long as it was, especially with so many things that were going on in this
Yeah.
episode. Everything with the Westie Besties and Bev Melon and, Sazz's Trampoline Park. Like, there was so many things that were happening, but we spent a crazy amount of time with Paul Rudd that didn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, this is probably the weakest of the episodes so far this season to me, just because we did spend a lot of time meandering in this one spot when all the stuff I think we really want to talk about, and hence why we didn't start talking about Paul Rudd until like the 27-minute mark of this video, like it was all elsewhere. Like, I want to know more about the trampoline park. I want to know more about, Bev's relationship with Sazz.
Yeah.
I think you're on the money with that. And I think that there's a lot to be diving into here. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the preview for what's coming up. But, this episode did bring some good stuff to the table. We did have some emotional moments with
Yes.
Sazz. I just wish that we were getting somewhere a little faster, but rest assured, we have a lot more coming up here. So hit that subscribe button so you guys do not miss anything else. Also, join our Patreon. That link is in the description below for $5 a month. You guys help to support us greatly. We appreciate that so much. And also, we are covering the Penguin exclusively on Patreon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you here next time.